Okay, buckle up. We're talking about talking to machines today.
Yeah, but not just, hey AI, play my favorite song.
No, not the simple stuff. We mean really getting AI to do complex things. Write code, make art, analyze data, help you brainstorm.
Right. And for a while now, figuring out how to give those instructions, how to type the right words into the chatbot,
Yeah.
it's felt like, well, a bit of a dark art maybe, or even a science.
Exactly. And
Oh.
it got this name, prompt engineering.
But here's the thing, this whole idea, this skill of prompt engineering,
Yeah.
it's already changing super fast,
Yeah.
faster than most people realize.
It sounds technical, I know.
Yeah.
But really, it's about something fundamental, isn't it? Communication.
Totally. How do we humans, with all our hidden meanings and unspoken stuff, actually get this non-human intelligence to grasp what we really want it to do?
That's at the core question, and that's what we're diving deep into today. We've got a stack of sources ready, recent articles, some cutting-edge research, chats with people actually building these AI systems.
Think of it as our map, basically, for figuring out where this whole human-AI communication thing is heading.
Yeah, and our goal isn't just to define prompt engineering for you. We want to understand the big shifts happening right now.
Why they matter for you, whether you're using AI all the time or just kind of hearing about it, and, where this intricate dance is ultimately going.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. First principles. What is prompt engineering actually doing?
Well, at its absolute core, it's a human trying, often really painstakingly, to guide and constrain this incredibly smart but fundamentally alien intelligence.
You're trying to give it enough context, enough structure, enough clues so it does the specific thing you want, the way you want it.
Exactly. It reminds me of that analogy, trying to teach a super smart parrot to recite Shakespeare.
Huh. Yeah, you can feed it the words, train it on the patterns.
To be or not to be, right. The parrot might squawk it back perfectly, but does it get the meaning, the angst, the philosophy?
Nope, not a clue.
It's a master mimic, an amazing pattern matcher. But that deep human understanding, that's the bridge we're still building. And prompt engineering, that's basically the scaffolding we're using right now.
Okay, and this is where the critical thinking part really kicks in for me.
Yeah.
Why do we even need all this scaffolding? If AI is so brilliant, why can't it just, understand us? Why the need for such careful, often super long instructions?
That's the key limitation of today's AI, isn't it? Even with all its power to process data, find patterns, write text, make images, it lacks genuine human-level context. It doesn't get our intent automatically.
It doesn't share our world knowledge, our experiences, our common sense.
Exactly. It doesn't read between the lines like we do.
So it's less like talking to, say, Sherlock Holmes, who figures everything out from a tiny clue.
Oh, that's a great comparison. Yeah, Sherlock's amazing at inference, right? He sees the why behind everything from almost nothing.
Right.
Current AI, it's maybe more like C-3PO.
Okay, I see that. Knows a million languages, follows protocols perfectly.
Exactly. Knows all the rules. But ask him to understand sarcasm or the subtext in a human chat. He's totally lost. Needs explicit instructions. Structure.
That gap between Sherlock's intuition and C-3PO needing the manual, that's where prompt engineering exists today.
Precisely. We're essentially trying to write a detailed enough manual for C-3PO so he can act a bit more like Sherlock.
And that gap is massive.
Yeah.
So the future isn't just about us getting better at writing those manuals.
No, exactly. It's also about the AI itself getting better at being a bit more Sherlock-like, engineering its own understanding, needing less hand-holding from us.
Okay, so what does this C-3PO manual writing actually feel like for people doing it now, based on the sources?
It's interesting. The descriptions vary quite a bit. Some people say it feels like coding back in, say, 1995.
Oh, wow, okay. Early days.
Yeah, the tools aren't fully mature. You're working very close to the metal, lots of trial and error. It can feel a bit clunky, like you're figuring out the basic rules from scratch.
I can picture that. Raw technology.
Right. But then, maybe more surprisingly, others describe it feeling a lot like learning to manage a person, like a new team member.
Manage a person? How so?
Well, you have to be incredibly clear about the task, right? Define their role precisely, set very specific expectations for what the output should look like, provide all the necessary background info, give them guardrails what not to do.
Like explaining a project to a very smart but very, very literal intern.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And there was this amazing example in the sources from a company called Parrot. They do AI customer support for tech companies.
Okay.
And they consider their main prompt, the one that defines their AI agent's behavior, to be like their crown jewels. Top secret intellectual property.
So how detailed are we talking?
Incredibly detailed. 6 pages long.
6 pages for one prompt. Wow.
6 pages of text defining the AI's core behavior. And it wasn't just, flowing paragraphs. It was highly structured.
Structure.
Like explicitly defining the role. You are a customer service manager, breaking down tasks into bullet points, step-by-step plans, lists of points to remember, meticulously specifying the output format.
Okay.
And get this, they even used things that looked almost like XML tags, like task and task, embedded right in the natural language instructions.
To give the AI unmistakable structural cues.
Exactly. It's less like talking, more like, well, like you said, coding, or maybe writing an incredibly detailed job description and training manual all rolled into one.
That's the C3PO instruction manual in action right there.
That's the current reality for getting really reliable, predictable results on complex stuff. Verbose, highly structured.
Okay, so that's where we often are now needing these 6-page manuals for our digital colleagues. Where are we heading? What's the big shift?
The fundamental shift is moving away from us needing to provide that massive manual. It's towards the AI understanding you with much less explicit effort.
Makes sense. And the sources highlight a few key ways this is happening. First up, moving beyond just text.
Absolutely. Just typing words is starting to feel, well, a bit quaint already. Multimodal input is huge.
Meaning
Interacting with AI by showing it images, playing audio, giving it video context, maybe even other sensor data alongside text, or sometimes even instead of text.
So instead of just asking for an image of a lonely Martian explorer, I might show it some photos of Mars, play some sad music, show a clip from a sci-fi film to set the mood.
Exactly that kind of rich interaction. Models like DALL-E 3, CIP, GPT-4o, they're built for this. They understand different types of data together.
And does it work better?
Oh, yeah. Research mentioned in the sources, like from Stanford, shows these multimodal models are significantly better, like 25% better in some studies at tasks that need cross-domain understanding. Things like summarizing a video or describing a complex image.
Okay, that's a big jump.
Think about interacting with your smart home devices. Imagine how much smoother it could be if they could see what you're pointing at, hear the tone of your voice, and understand the context of the room all at once. It's about giving the AI more dimensions of context, more senses, basically.
More senses for the AI. Got it. What's the next big piece?
Personalization and understanding implicit intent. This is huge.
Implicit intent, meaning what I don't say.
Kind of. It's AI getting much better at understanding you specifically, your history with it, the projects you're working on, your preferred writing style, maybe even data from your workflow.
So like Sherlock. Noticing my habits and preferences over time.
Yeah.
The AI starts to anticipate what I need before I even ask explicitly.
Exactly. It shifts from being a generic tool to being your personalized Copilot. Super efficient.
Yeah.
Forrester actually reported a 35% jump in e-commerce engagement just by using personalized prompts tailored to the user's context.
35% is substantial.
It is. So as AI gets better at guessing your needs based on who you are and what you're doing, those long, explicit 6-page prompts become less and less necessary.
The ultimate goal being?
Personalized models. Fine-tuned specifically on your data. They just inherently know your preferences and how you work, needing way less instruction.
That sounds incredibly powerful.
Yippee.
Almost a bit creepy, like the AI knows too much.
Well, it definitely raises important questions, which brings us to the ethical side we need to talk about. But just from a capability perspective, the potential for efficiency is enormous.
Okay, and then the third big shift.
Yeah.
It gets really meta, right? AI helping AI.
Meta prompting. Yeah, it sounds like sci-fi, but it's very real and happening now. We're using AI to generate, refine, and optimize prompts for other AI models.
So C3PO is learning how to write better instruction manuals for his C3PO buddies.
Sort of, yeah. Tools are already popping up that automate big chunks of this prompt tuning process. MIT Tech Review mentioned these tools can cut down the time needed for prompt engineering by, 60%.
60% reduction.
Wow. And even wilder. Some studies are showing that prompts generated by AI can actually outperform human-written ones in complex tasks by around 12–18%.
Okay, that's slightly humbling. AI is better at prompting AI than we are.
In some cases, yeah. It involves techniques like prompt folding, where a prompt can kind of dynamically rewrite itself to be better based on past results or failures.
Like test-driven development, but for AI instructions.
It's very similar conceptually, and companies are getting smart about this. They're using the really big, powerful models, the Sherlocks, maybe to generate and refine the best prompts.
Okay.
And then they use those highly optimized prompts with smaller, faster models, the C3POs, for speed and efficiency in actual products, like maybe a voice assistant.
Right. Use the big brain for strategy, the specialized agents for execution speed.
Smart.
And speaking of managing these agents, another crucial piece from the sources was giving them an escape hatch.
An escape hash, what's that?
It ties right back into that managing a digital colleague idea. These models are designed to be helpful, right? Sometimes too helpful.
Meaning, if they don't actually have the information to answer your question or do the task properly, their default programming might be to just kind of make something up, to give you an answer, even if it's wrong.
The hallucination problem. They'd rather invent than say, I don't know.
Exactly. So a really critical part of good prompting, or maybe we should say good AI instruction, is explicitly giving the AI permission not to answer. The escape hatch.
How do you do that?
You literally tell it. If you lack the necessary information or if you're unsure about the accuracy, do not guess. Stop. Ask me for clarification.
Just like telling a new employee, hey, if you hit a wall, don't just wing it. Come ask me first.
Precisely. And it gets better. Some models are sophisticated enough now that when they do use the escape hatch, the debug info they provide, it can actually become a direct to-do list for the developer or the person designing the interaction. The AI basically says, look, this part of your instruction or this bit of data, it doesn't make sense to me. Fix this, then I can proceed.
So it becomes a collaborative debugging process. The AI tells us how to improve the instructions.
It really is moving towards that.
Okay, so this whole evolution smarter AI, changing instruction methods, it clearly has huge implications beyond just the tech itself.
Absolutely. The ethical side becomes incredibly important. Prompt engineering, or whatever we call it next, isn't just about getting the best performance. It's about fairness, about tackling bias, about transparency.
How so?
Well, studies are showing that if you deliberately design prompts with bias mitigation in mind, you can actually reduce biased outputs by around 20%.
So actively trying to steer the AI away from harmful stereotypes or unfair assumptions in its responses.
Exactly. It's leading to whole new areas like bias-aware prompting. And then there's transparency. People need to know how a prompt influenced an AI's decision, especially for important stuff. Things like the EU AI Act are pushing for tracking the source of
provenance, right? And privacy must be huge, too.
Critical. Developing techniques to handle sensitive data within prompts without actually exposing the raw data.
Okay, so with all these changes, smarter AI, automation, multimodal, ethics, what happens to the actual job title, prompt engineer? Is it, like, dying out? Or just changing?
Well, there's definitely debate about that. The sources show different takes. Some people argue pretty strongly that as AI gets better at understanding us and even writing its own prompts, the need for someone manually crafting those long, verbose prompts, that's going to shrink.
You see those headlines, right? Is prompt engineering already dead?
Exactly. Pretty dramatic. But then others argue just as strongly that the role isn't vanishing, it's just evolving, becoming more sophisticated.
Tapping into what?
Into roles with titles like AI interaction designer, maybe AI behaviorist, or it becomes a key part of broader AI operations teams. You hear the term LLMOps like DevOps, but for large language models.
So less about writing the specific words of the prompt, more about designing the whole system that uses prompts or manages how the AI behaves.
That's the idea. And specializations are already popping up. People focusing on prompts for specific industries like healthcare or finance, specialists who audit prompts for ethical concerns, people building the meta-prompting tools themselves.
And the skills needed are changing too, then.
Definitely. Less focus on finding that perfect magic word, maybe. More emphasis on multimodal literacy, understanding how text, images, audio work together. Probabilistic thinking, knowing how prompts influence the likelihood of different outcomes. Even things like AI pair programming, collaborating with an AI to refine instructions for another AI.
And it seems like no-code platforms are a big part of this picture, too.
A huge part. Gartner predicts that by 2025, something like 70% of new AI apps will be built using no-code or low-code tools.
That's 90%.
Yeah, that democratizes everything. It puts prompt design capabilities into simpler visual interfaces. Fewer people will need to write raw, complex prompts from scratch. They'll be configuring AI behavior through easier interfaces.
It feels like all this tech evolution is really tied back to something deeply human. truly understanding the person who's actually going to use the AI.
It absolutely is. There's this concept mentioned in the sources, the forward deployed engineer, which companies like Palantir made famous.
Right, tell me about that.
Instead of just sending salespeople, they send their actual engineers to embed with the users, like sit side by side with an FBI agent in the field or a tractor sales manager out in Nebraska.
To really get inside their world, understand their day-to-day problems.
Exactly. To grasp their workflow, their specific pain points, and this is key, their reward function. What does success actually look like for them in their job? And then you build the software to fit that reality, not some generic idea.
Okay, and how does that connect back to AI and prompting today?
Well, this deep user understanding, combined with how flexible modern AI models are, is why we're seeing these specialized AI companies, the ones focused on specific industries like logistics or healthcare, making huge strides.
Like the ones mentioned. Parrot, GugerML, Happy Robot.
Yes, companies like those. They're reportedly closing big deals, like 6 or 7 figures, really fast.
By understanding the user.
Precisely. They can go into a meeting with a potential client, quickly grasp that company's unique process and challenges, and then, this is the amazing part, they can rapidly prototype a solution.
Using AI.
Yes. They take all that specific user context, the workflow details, the terminology, and they feed it right into the AI's configuration, often through sophisticated prompt frameworks or metaprompting. They can come back, sometimes the very next day, with a demo that feels totally custom built.
Wow, that quick.
Yeah. The demo uses the client's terms, addresses their specific bottlenecks. It doesn't feel like a generic AI. It feels like their AI. That's the forward-deployed engineer approach, but supercharged by modern AI's configurability.
That moment when a client sees an AI that seems to actually get their specific problem, that must be incredibly powerful.
It is. It's about translating that user's unique reward function into the AI's operating instructions.
And thinking again about managing these AIs, it's fascinating how the sources point out that different models almost seem to have different personalities or ways of working.
They really do. There was this interesting comparison someone made when testing different models on applying scoring rubrics. An older model, like maybe a GPT-3 variant, was described as really rigid, like the soldier.
The soldier, meaning?
Meaning it followed the rubric instructions absolutely perfectly to the letter, penalized anything that didn't fit exactly, even if a human might look at it and say, yeah, that's a reasonable variation.
Just sticks to the rules no matter what.
Exactly. Unwavering. But then a more advanced model, like Gemini 2.5 Pro in this example, was described as having much higher agency, more like a high-agency employee.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means it could apply the rubric, sure, but it could also reason about edge cases. It could understand when a slight deviation might actually be okay, or even better. It adapted based on the broader goal, not just the strict literal rule.
That's a huge difference. One's a rule follower, the other's more like a problem solver who gets the spirit of the rule.
Exactly. And understanding these different personalities is becoming key to working effectively with different AIs. It reinforces why things like that escape hatch instruction are so vital.
Right.
You absolutely need to tell the soldier model it's okay not to follow orders if it lacks info, whereas the high-agency employee model might be more likely to ask for clarification itself. It's about managing their built-in tendencies. And like we said, the debug info they give when they are confused, that's gold. It turns their confusion into our homework.
It really, really feels like we're learning how to manage and collaborate with entirely new kinds of digital minds.
And everything we've talked about, all these trends, they all point in one direction, away from needing that explicit, painstaking 6-page prompt manual.
That's the holy grail, right? Less prompting.
That's absolutely the goal. The real fundamental evolution isn't about humans getting slightly better at writing super detailed instructions. It's about the AI itself getting massively better at inferring our intent.
Using context, using multimodal information, learning from how we interact with it,
Yeah.
understanding us more intuitively.
Yeah. We're moving beyond trying to build better parrots that can just recite Shakespeare on command.
We're aiming for
What?
a true cognitive partner, a co-pilot for our thinking.
Exactly. And a really good co-pilot. They shouldn't need you to read them a massive instruction manual before every single maneuver or decision.
So let's pull back then. Looking at all these threads, multimodal, personalization, AI helping AI, understanding users, different AI personalities, if we're going to make a bold prediction based on this deep dive.
Based on where things are heading, the speed of it all, how AI is getting better at understanding us and automating the instruction part.
Okay, here it is. The bold prediction. Within a decade, the job title prompt engineer, as we think of it right now, that person hunched over, crafting lengthy, almost code-like text prompts.
Yeah.
That title is going to sound as old-fashioned, as archaic as switchboard operator.
Wow. Okay, so no more prompting.
Well, we won't be prompting AI with these huge essays or weird tags. AI will be much more deeply integrated, a cognitive partner that understands what we want from minimal cues, maybe spoken, maybe visual, maybe just contextual.
Inferring our intent with a fluidity that feels less like giving instructions and more like, well, something else entirely.
The Holy Grail isn't just better prompts. It's AI that barely needs explicit prompts at all.
We're aiming for a flow, a collaboration that's so natural, so intuitive, it might start to feel like something closer to telepathy, with a really smart, really helpful thing.
Maybe even direct neural links for some things down the line. Why type when you can just think it?
That's the far horizon, perhaps, but the direction is clear. Less friction, more understanding.
Okay, so let's wrap this deep dive up. We started by looking at prompt engineering as this necessary, sometimes painstaking job of telling these powerful but literal AIs what to do, like teaching C3PO or that Shakespeare reciting parrot.
Right, and we saw the current state often involves those massive 6-page manuals, structured almost like code, really highlighting the gap in AI's current understanding.
But the future is rushing towards AI understanding us much better. Using multiple senses, leveraging our personal context, even using AI to optimize its own instructions. More Sherlock, less C3PO needing the manual.
And this shift forces us to think hard about the ethics fighting bias, ensuring transparency because we're directing something increasingly powerful.
The job itself is morphing dramatically. Less about writing the perfect sentence, more about designing AI interactions, managing AI behavior, maybe using simpler no-code tools to do it.
We saw how this connects to really understanding users, like those forward-deployed engineers, enabling companies to rapidly tailor AI that feels custom-built, leading to real business impact.
And we learned that different AIs have different personalities. The rigid soldier versus the adaptive employee requiring different management styles, and those crucial escape hatches when they're unsure.
And ultimately, it all points towards that holy grail, a future where the explicit prompt kind of fades into the background, replaced by AI that just gets us acting like a true cognitive partner.
This whole evolution is going to fundamentally change how you interact with technology every day, the kinds of skills that will be valuable, and frankly, what feels possible with AI.
And it leaves us all with that really provocative thought to chew on. The ultimate goal isn't just smoother communication with AI, it's striving for an interaction so seamless it feels less like instruction and maybe, just maybe, a bit closer to telepathy.
Why type when you can just think?
Mm-hmm.
Something to consider as you use these tools today and watch them evolve tomorrow. Thanks for diving deep with us.